Yeah, what's up everybody? I wanted to show you the little hookups that I use for my old school systems before I tell you on this Intellivision here. Anyways, finally found where I had one of these. Is I had the cheaper ones, and this is one of the really good ones from Radio Shack. Anyways, that's one of the direct connects, and as you can see, it is gold plated. This is the one to get if you have a Radio Shack and you want a really good signal. And it's made a lot better too. I think this cost about like $6.50 or whatever. And also, it's got a nice grip to it here. It's not just all smoothed out. And I do have some of the just regular old silver steel ones or whatever. One of them I did buy just to try out from Radio Shack, and it's alright. And I don't know where he gets them. I'm figuring he gets them in mass quantity, kind of like his cables for the RF. But from Atari2600.com, one of them had it to where all I did was pull off the cable. I gave it a little bit of a tug and didn't think anything of it. And it literally snapped from the screw-on part, as in the metal broke. So it could have been one that was defective, or they're made out of a cheap metal. Because these ones, man, once they're on really friggin' tight until you want to unscrew it. Anyways, best one you can get as far as I'm concerned. Otherwise, if you're lucky enough to find one that is not totally beat up, old school switch box, and this is probably the best one I've ever seen out of an old school style switch box. Most of them don't have an input for coaxial, as in cable. So this had to have come out later in the 80s when they started going to cable TV, as in all my other ones always had just the two screws to hook up your TV antenna or whatever, and then this style hookup to where you gotta have one of these puppies, or like this TV have it to where it screws in the same as this. But the problem with these things, and nowadays you could probably make it last longer as long as you don't keep switching it back and forth, but used to be to where if you wanted to watch TV you had to switch it to the TV and then back to game or whatever, and eventually that would wear out, as in that's just two plates there putting tension on each other, and basically you're sanding down the metal and making it to where the contacts are crappy. As in eventually, if it doesn't totally quit on you, your gameplay, you'll start getting a lot of static in it. But, really don't recommend those, man. Most of my systems go through the direct connect, no problem, but on my Ataris, my 6-switcher systems, for some reason on this old TV, they like this better than the other. I can get a sharper signal for some reason. Otherwise, works great on all my newer TVs. That's the situation with this. This is my Radio Shack Tandyvision One-Intellivision clone, and for some weird freaking reason, it does not like this TV. And this is not the only Intellivision system I got. If you guys blow up your screen, I've got more behind me. I've got the Intellivision 2, a couple or so different Model 1 Intellivisions, and then my Sears Intellivision system. All of those work beautifully on this set. So they changed something in this that has to do with the RF out to where it's only going to like certain TVs. As in what it does on this, and it's really weird. I've never had an old school system do this. Usually it either works or it doesn't. I get a really super sharp picture now that I repaired this puppy, as in soldered the RF jack in place. But the sound comes through weird, like I'm getting a really strange signal. Kind of like if I play Burger Time on it. That first little melody it plays when you start up your level comes through really friggin' loud, like annoying loud, and then once it starts playing the main background music, it deadens out, but all the sound effects are really loud, especially if you die. If you die, it's like in your face loud. But tried it on the newer TV in the living room, as in year 2000 up. I think that's like a 2004 RCA TV that we got in our living room. Regular old tube TV. Works like it's brand freaking new. Perfect picture, perfect sound, everything. So fortunately the system's alright. It just doesn't like the TV. So if you guys get one of these, or even one of the original Intellivisions, and have that problem on a TV, don't send it back to eBay or whatever if you've ordered it online. Try it on some different sets if you got more than one TV set. Because I had one that I worked on a while back, and another thing they changed on this, I'm going to use this as an example. The RF box that's inside of the system, once you open up the system and take the shielding off of the motherboard so you can get at this, and take the little roof off of the box so you can see the guts, this is basically stuck through from the inside on this little jack, and in a way I'm glad I opened it up, man, because if Radio Shack put this together, it was really obvious. They used to do really shitty work back in the day on some of their stuff, as in we'd gotten CBs from them, as in walkie-talkies for our campground, and one of them caught on fire while we were charging it, and it was not plugged in very long, man. It literally melted the freaking charger and the back of the walkie-talkie. Just cheap shit. And even worse, when we took it to our local Radio Shack in, let's see, I believe that was Grass Valley, California, Nevada City, wherever it was. The motherfuckers used Scotch tape to rewire, as in they twisted the wire together and used regular old Scotch tape instead of solder to put the thing back together. Really shit job. To where I quit buying stuff from Radio Shack for quite a long time. But speaking of that kind of work, it only had like a little speck of solder on this outside washer holding this thing in place, let alone keeping it from rotating. As in, that seems to be a common problem on these puppies, but this one just worse. So what I did is, once I opened it up, I just got that bead of solder, added some to it, and went all the way around that ring, and that's why I'm getting a super good signal now. Anyways, what they changed is the little hole here where your center post plugs into on your cable. Last one I worked on, that goes out a little ways to the back of it, and then it has just enough of a pin sticking out to where it has a resistor soldered to that, and then the other lead on the resistor goes into the circuit board. To where if that twists, it has snapped the resistor, and that's what it did. It separated the resistor from the post. The one on this puppy doesn't have the resistor. It's got it to where that sticks out even further and then bends down, and that is soldered into the circuit board, and then they got the resistor somewhere else. So if you got one that's loose, solder it right away, man. Don't give it a chance to get worse, because if that breaks at the circuit board, you're going to have a bitch of a time trying to fix this sucker. As once I opened it, there's like whatever sticking out one side to where that's soldered to the motherboard, to where you'd have to desolder that, and then you have to desolder that from the little circuit board. As in, there's so many things holding that in place inside the little box. I think you'd screw up your system worse trying to take it out just to get to that little soldering pin or whatever to redo it, if you even can. As in, it's thick enough to where I think if you gave it enough of a twist, it would probably mess up the circuitry to where you'd be shot. So, first little subtle change, which fortunately wasn't broken. Another change that I noticed on this, and for anybody that's ever worked on a old school Nintendo, as in toaster type NES, when it comes to unplugging the controller ports, you know the little plugs, you got the plastic piece and then another plastic piece goes into that, just like a regular old computer type plug. The last Intellivision I worked on that was really foobar had the controllers plugged in like that. to where real bitch to get that out of there. It's in there really super tight, and I had to use a little flathead screwdriver to wedge it out. This one, way better. More old school, but better, to where they've got really thick pins that stick up from the motherboard and then bend out about, I'd say a couple centimeters in length, and then the controllers here, the plugs on them, is just one plug, and it just slides right onto those pins. And I've got videos working on other systems, mainly my Atari 800, when I'm showing how to take it apart. Kind of like the way that thing comes apart on the different circuit boards and just unplugging stuff. Way better. To where you can just slide it right off, no problem. But still, and this is on all of them, don't grab it by the wires, grab it by the plug, or use something to wedge it off. Because the wires are really fine. You've got a lot of them, because not only do you have the little, well, now joysticks, as in disc or whatever, on these puppies, you've got the keypad, so you got more wires than usual. And I don't think you can get one of those back into that plug if it's snapped off or pulled out of it. The Nintendo, it's possible. I've done that on a Nintendo, and if they're all the same, the one I worked on, I don't know what the hell they call them, but it's like a metal strip with little slits cut into it, and then there's teeth going across it, and the wires are literally pushed into it, as in crimped in place. And I had a wire come out, and that's all I had to do was get a little flathead screwdriver and push it back in. So may be able to do that on the other one, but this one, they're in there really good, so you'd be screwed. As in, yes, you can replace the controllers on any of these Intellivision systems. Easier than on some than others, as in this one and all the other Model 1s you gotta open up. The Sears one, the way they did it is they plug in the same way, but instead of going straight to the controllers, they go to a controller port. And on the Model 2 Intellivision, I can't remember on that. I'd have to open it up again. I don't know if they're right into the circuit board or if they got wire coming off of them or what, because they're pretty tight. So that's all the info I can give you guys tonight on this puppy, man. I just wanted to tell you what was up. Because, man, so far all my other systems work great on this TV. This is the first one that it works, but it just doesn't quite work good. So, you never know. Later.